Okay, Year 9. So in half term 1, you're going to be studying urban change in the UK with a focus on the case study of Birmingham. We'll also look at the end of the topic at sustainable urban development. So mostly in geography we talk about the United Kingdom, which is made up of England, Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland, but not the Republic of Ireland or just Ireland. You might also hear us talk about Great Britain, which includes England, Wales and Scotland, so no islands at all. Or you might hear us talk about the British Isles. Easy way to remember this, I think of this as all the islands or the isles. So Scotland, England, Wales, Northern Ireland and Ireland. But most often we use the 4 nations of the United Kingdom. Now some parts of the UK are sparsely populated. That just means that not many people live in that area. So this is a picture of the Shetland Islands off the north coast of Scotland. As you can see, it is a sparsely populated or rural area. However, this topic we're going to focus on a densely populated area, or an area where lots of people live, and that densely populated or urban area, a city, is Birmingham. So why did so many people move to urban areas? 200 years ago, if you'd have come to Birmingham, it would have been much more rural, much more green. So why did so many people migrate or move to Birmingham and large cities around the UK? Well, one of the reasons is that cities like Birmingham, Manchester and Cardiff they're sitting on top of large deposits of raw materials like coal. So for example, Manchester, underneath Manchester, there were large deposits of coal. You also had large cities grow up near ports. So London, Liverpool and Bristol, they grew as major trading ports for imports and exports in order to raise the GDP of the country. London developed because of its political and administrative functions. All that means is that the government runs the country from the City of London. So naturally, more jobs are going to spring up there and more people are going to migrate to the City of London. And finally, Birmingham's location in the centre of the country meant that it was really easy to develop transport links that still exist now during the Industrial Revolution, moving raw materials and manufactured products around the country. So we can see that the UK varies in population density. The distribution of the population varies. So we have our areas of high population density where lots of people live in a square kilometre, such as London, Birmingham, Manchester, Cardiff in South Wales. We also have areas of very low population density, the lighter colours on this map. So the extreme north of Scotland, North Wales in Snowdonia and the southwest in Devon and Cornwall. But we're going to focus on urban change and how becoming more urban or urbanised has changed the city of Birmingham. So some basic facts: 1.1 million people live in Birmingham now. So that number's gone up slightly since the last figures, and it's located centrally in the UK in the West Midlands. And it's the UK's second largest city after London. So why is it important to the West Midlands region, the nation of the UK, but also internationally? Well, Birmingham, as I've said, is the second largest city in the UK. So naturally, it's got a large population, so it's going to have some importance. But regionally, it has the National Exhibition Centre, which holds massive, not just regional, but national events such as Crufts. The International Convention Centre, the European Indoor Athletics Championships were held in Birmingham, and more recently, the Commonwealth Games. It also has one of the largest public libraries in Europe, so a massive cultural opportunity there, and has several sporting clubs, including the football clubs of Aston Villa, Birmingham City and West Bromwich Albion, with Villa Park and the other venues hosting massive international events like the Rugby World Cup. One of the biggest motorway junctions in Europe, Gravelly Hill Interchange officially, but we know it as Spaghetti Junction because of the way it looks, is just 2 miles from Birmingham city centre, where the M42, the M40, the M5 and the M6 all converge into Birmingham's motorway box. So we also have Birmingham International Airport. The clue is in the name. That provides regional economic growth through international travel, tourism, but also business moving through the airport. The Bull Ring is also one of the biggest growing tourist destinations in the UK, with millions of people visiting it every year for leisure and shopping. And another cultural opportunity, we have the Asian Wedding Show, which is the largest show of Asian bridal dress in Europe, held at the NEC. In terms of industry, so in the jewellery quarter, 1/3 of all the jewellery that is manufactured in the UK is still manufactured in the jewellery quarter. The clue's in the name. Tourism. So as I said, the Bullring, a massive tourist attraction that brings in 41.8 million people, and those people spend £7.1 billion, which goes into Birmingham's economy, driving regional economic growth and providing lots of employment in the tertiary sector. Other popular tourist attractions, Cadbury and the Black Country Museum. In terms of religion, Birmingham has a rich cultural heritage, so 2 cathedrals, St Chad's, which is a Catholic cathedral, and St Philip's, the Church of England, which is a Church of England cathedral. But you also have Birmingham Central Mosque and lots of other massive places of worship due to Birmingham's multicultural population. Birmingham has 5 universities, so BCU, UCB, Aston, Newman, and the University of Birmingham. So it's a massive centre for education and for ensuring that people go on to work tertiary and quaternary sector jobs and get a really high standard of living, and also lots of opportunities for culture and entertainment. A few that we haven't mentioned: so the Birmingham Symphony Orchestra perform at Symphony Hall, but also the Birmingham Royal Ballet, shout out Mr. Devine's girlfriend. So impacts of migration in Birmingham. So the key point is that there are 2 types of migration. There's national migration within the country, so that's usually people moving from a rural area of the UK to Birmingham to improve their standard of living, quality of life. But as we know from our multicultural population, we also have a lot of international migration to Birmingham. So that's from another country. So some of the countries where most migrants come from are countries like India, Pakistan, China, and Eastern Europe. So how has national migration affected the city? So remember, that's people coming from usually rural areas to Birmingham, or from other cities to Birmingham, or we're building on greenfield sites because of urban sprawl. So more people, we need more houses, so those houses start to spread out, or sprawl, that's why it's called urban sprawl, onto the rural-urban fringe, which is the barrier between the urban and rural areas. We also have rising property prices, so the higher population mean there's more demand for housing, so property prices are going to rise. We've also had traffic congestion, so more people with a better standard of living means there's going to be higher rates of car ownership, which is going to add to traffic congestion because infrastructure development can't keep up. And finally, pressure on services, so local health services, schools, but also waste management services, for example, struggle to cope with the speed at which Birmingham's population is developing. Whereas international migration, so people moving from other countries into Birmingham, again, usually to improve their standard of living, quality of life, so they are economic migrants. We have a range of languages spoken, so hundreds of languages just in the city of Birmingham, a wide range of cultures as well, and that is shown in the leisure and recreation opportunities such as the Asian Wedding Show. Chinatown in Birmingham has Chinese architecture and a range of Chinese restaurants, which mean there's a hub of Chinese culture in the city centre. Here you can see a nice view of Chinatown, little cafes serving Chinese food like Cafe Soya, so if you want some, yeah. Impacts of urban change in Birmingham. So there's lots of economic challenges in Birmingham, and most of these result from the process of deindustrialisation, simply factories closing down. Why did they close down? Well, the cheaper labour in other countries, usually NEEs like China and Nigeria, mean that it's cheaper for manufacturers like Dyson to manufacture their products in those NEEs. Another reason Margaret Thatcher's government pushed a policy of importing cheaper foreign imports. So cheaper foreign imports, the process of globalisation, so transport and communication becoming faster, means that it's very easy for something to be shipped next day from China via Amazon. It doesn't have to be made locally in Birmingham or the Black Country. And changes to government policy, so those are Margaret Thatcher's policies that she started to try and modernise and move towards free market capitalism. So, dereliction. As a result, all these factories that close down mean there are lots of derelict or abandoned buildings around Birmingham. They're industrial buildings, so lots of them are contaminated with waste, and they're generally not very aesthetically pleasing or visually unpleasing. So, as a result, we have lots of unemployment in Birmingham, usually concentrated around the city centre, so where those industrial areas where there are lots of derelict buildings that people used to work in the secondary sector, so areas like Nechells, Aston, the Zells and Ladywood. As a result, Birmingham has 6 of the 10 highest unemployed kind of wards or regions in the UK. So Ladywood, Hodge Hill, Perry Bar, Erdington, Hall Green, Yardley, all ranking in the top 10 around the UK of areas with high unemployment. That leads to deprivation. So that's when someone lacks a service. Now it could just be one thing. They might be energy deprived, or they might be income deprived, or it could be multiple things. They might be energy, income and healthcare deprived all at the same time. But Ladywood, as a result of that unemployment and deindustrialisation, is one of the most deprived areas in the whole of the UK. There are also lots of economic opportunities to balance out those economic challenges. So there's been billions of pounds of investment in the last decade in Birmingham. So in Centenary Square, opposite the library, you'll find the new head office of HSBC UK, who relocated for the cheaper rent, but also to provide economic opportunities to people in Birmingham. Here's it from another angle. As you can see, it's also a really sustainable building, so lots of glass to give lots of natural light to reduce artificial light and energy consumption. Another example, regeneration. So taking old buildings, so these are old industrial buildings at Brindley Place along the canal that used to be used for movement of coal using coal barges, have now been redeveloped into clubs, restaurants and shops, such as the Picture and Piano. The old buildings haven't been knocked down, they have just been restored and regenerated to improve the standard of living, quality of life in the area and make it more attractive to all those tourists. But the biggest example, or recent example of regeneration, has to be the regeneration that took place as part of the Commonwealth Games. We had some closer to our academy at the Smethwick Aquatic Centre, but they also had Alexander Stadium, which looks very different to when I was running around on it when I was 15 years old. It's now a massive stadium capable of hosting thousands of fans for international athletes, but also the wider Perry Bar area. One example, regenerating the train station to connect it to Birmingham's integrated transport system. But there is also social challenge. So as I said, the deprivation in Ladywood means that lots of people in Birmingham still live in poverty. As a result, generally GCSE results are much lower in Birmingham than the national average. So if we have a look, that gap is closing slightly. So in 2015 there was a difference of 3% from the national average. Now in 2015 it was just 1%. There's also the impact of that deprivation is life expectancy. So generally, the further people live away from the city centre, the better their life expectancy. They have a higher quality of life, standard of living, generally larger houses, more money so they can pay for things like gym memberships and healthier foods, which means that as you move away from the city centre, life expectancy can vary from anything from 74 to 84. So that's 10 years in the space of about 10 miles. So in terms of the social opportunities, massive one, the universities, the 5 universities we have. This one is of the University of Birmingham, Birmingham's first university. But it's not just the education that helps people, it's the degree and the qualification that helps them to get tertiary and quaternary sector jobs, which are really well paid. That's the difference between graduates and non-graduates. We've also got the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, which is regionally but also nationally important, with some of the best technology and some of the best research in the medical field. We've also got Small Heath Eid celebration, which is a massive religious congregation, the largest in Europe for the Muslim community to celebrate their holidays. However, as a result of all this development, regeneration and deindustrialisation, there's also lots of environmental challenges. So one of these is Birmingham's motorway box, which we did say was a social opportunity, but if you think of the amount of use that this motorway box, but also the green A roads in the middle will be using, it leads to massive amounts of congestion. So this is in central Birmingham, leading up to, as you can see, the M6, M42, M5. That's why the traffic has developed. Another environmental challenge is that urban sprawl that we mentioned earlier. So as the population grows, you can see that this urban area is starting to spread out further into the wider city, or the conurbation as we call it. But also got lots of environmental opportunities as well. So this one, pollination, a attempt to celebrate the natural world in the centre of Birmingham, has been running in August 2022, pretty recent. But we've also got Eastside City Park, which was built just outside Millennium Point, which was actually built on a brownfield site. So this is an example of creating green space in an urban area. This is really important because, as you can see, it gives a nice environment that's going to attract lots of tourists and visitors, but also it does a lot to combat that air pollution produced by traffic congestion. We also have our integrated transport system. Integrated just means joined together, so our transport systems are joined together. So we have the electric Midlands Metro, so it's electric, it doesn't burn any fossil fuels in transporting people to where they need to go, usually to work. But importantly, it also connects people from those deprived areas like Ladywood and the wider Black Country, such as Wednesbury, to the city centre, so they can work those higher paid jobs. We've also got Birmingham's 4Rs waste management policy, so reduce, reuse, recycle and recovery energy. A simple way that Birmingham does that is through the use of different colour bins, so green for recycling, brown for green waste and black for non-recycled waste. So that means that recycling rates can be as high as 70% in Birmingham, because the brown waste can be recycled or recovered into compost, and the recyclable waste can go into the recycling bin and be made into new products. We've also got more kind of pop-up recycling centres like this. This means that recycling services can be brought to the consumer, as opposed to them having to go to the nearest household recycling centre, which might be a short drive away. Finally, sustainable urban development. So Birmingham is starting to do things to make it more sustainable, but the example that we use is Freiburg in Germany. But in Birmingham, so we mentioned the metro tram line, which is electric powered, and that reduces congestion and gives cleaner air. We've also got urban greening, so we mentioned Eastside City Park, but green roofs as well, for example, on the new public library, and waste management, for example, the different bins for recycling, or simply the household recycling centre. So, on to Freiburg. So that's what Birmingham's doing to be a sustainable urban area and develop sustainably. But Freiburg, they implemented social, economic and environmental sustainability strategies. So they made a promise in the 1980s to say, we are going to be a sustainable city. So it has three parts: social, economic and environmental. So in terms of social sustainability, that's ensuring the future for the young people. So groups of children are involved in feedback and decision making, so that when they grow up, they live in the city that they asked for or that they wanted, as opposed to being at the whim of their parents. And also financial investors are given free football season tickets as a thank you gift for investing in the city. Now, that doesn't seem that big, but financial investors will use that, or will take that as an incentive to invest more money and ensure the future of children like this. And there's also a massive policy of ensuring that as few homeless people in Freiburg are unemployed as possible. That's another example of social sustainability. Economic sustainability, so providing jobs for families so they can afford to live. So unemployment rates in Freiburg are some of the lowest in Europe. Businesses also have an obligation for their impacts to the environment. So being part of Freiburg's journey is, if you're going to invest in Freiburg, you also have to invest in green technology and being environmental industry, which just means being more sustainable in your practice. And finally, of course, environmental sustainability. So one of the most famous elements of Freiburg is the district of Vauban, which is built on a brownfield site, an old army barracks, and it has car-free zones. So you'll see most people in Freiburg use bikes. That's because they get priority over cars and even public transport. So that's a carrot method, an incentive method to get people to ride bikes. The car parks are also located on the edge of the city to discourage people from driving into the city. So if they want to come to Freiburg by car, they have to park on the outskirts and walk or cycle to the city centre, making driving inconvenient and cycling or walking more convenient. Also hosts daily farmers markets, so local food with low air miles, which reduces the carbon footprint of the consumer. The local football stadium is also powered by solar panels, and any surplus energy is transported to local offices and houses. So all of the energy is being used within Freiburg, and it's being produced by solar panels in a renewable way. And any building developed must be balanced with an environmental project. So that's going to offset carbon emissions, but it's also going to mean that the green space, so that urban greening, is conserved or created alongside the new developments for the economy. So 3 tasks that you need to do, or one of 3 tasks that you need to do. So of the 3 tasks, you need to do 1, and it's got to go onto Teams, ready for your geography teacher by the deadline they set. So the first option, you could create a poster that highlights all the challenges and opportunities that we have learnt about in Birmingham. Task 2, research the key features of a sustainable city around the world, such as Freiburg or Singapore. You could present that as a PowerPoint, you could present that as a poster, or any form you like. But have a look, and if you're not sure, just ask your teacher for an example of a sustainable city around the world. Miss Holden knows loads. And then task 3, ask your parents to take you to the Birmingham and take photographs of any key features that you've learned about in this topic. So make sure, if you do that you go with your parents, not on your own. And have a look, see if you can find HSBC and the library at Centenary Square. You've also got Symphony Hall and Brindley Place really close by. Also the newest regeneration, Paradise Forum as well. So good luck, enjoy.